Okay, hello everyone. So this video is going to be talking about my favorite albums of the first half of this year. I'm first going to start off by apologizing for my voice. I know it sounds really gross, but I'm sick, and first of all, there's nothing I can do about it. Second of all, I just really want to film this video and I don't want to put it off any longer. So I'm going to talk about all my favorite albums that came out this year, January through June. And I'm not going to exclusively be talking about the ones that I own, because there's some that I haven't received yet or some that I just don't plan to buy. I'm just going to go through these in random order. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is ONEUS's Light Us. So this album is like the perfect boy group album. Every single song is great. There's only one song I don't like, that's the last song on the album, but every other song for real is so good. Like Eye Contact and Hero are great. Valkyrie was probably the best title track they could have debuted with, and Zigzag is just a bop. So overall, I really like this album. I think it was a great way to get introduced to ONEUS and kind of see what exactly they have in store, I guess. Their second mini album isn't as great as this album, but I don't know, this album is so strong. It's like almost kind of like, how can you compete with it? I don't know. But I mean, it is a really good album. I'm happy it was released because it got me interested in ONEUS, and like previously I had no interest in ONEUS. Like I was very heavily interested in ONE and not very interested in ONEUS, but this album release changed that, which is a really good thing. So speaking of ONE, I have their Reminisce About All single. So this is a Japanese release, but I'm just using it to talk about the Korean release because there was no physical for the Korean release. But I love this single so much. Every song is so great. All three songs I've listened to almost on repeat throughout the past month or two, or from whenever it was released. Ring on My Ear is my absolute favorite song. I just love it so much. It's like weirdly really calm and really kind of upbeat at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I get mixed emotions when I listen to it because it's like it starts out being really slow and like sentimental, I guess, but then it kind of slowly gets to be more upbeat and exciting. And then Reminisce About All, it's such a good song. It's not what I was hoping they would debut with, like just because ballads aren't always the strongest thing to put out, but I do really like it. I ended up listening to it a lot more than I ever expected to, so I think that says something. I really do like Younghoon's voice a lot. He's a very strong vocalist. And then the third song, 0 and 4, also so good. Probably my least favorite of the three, but that doesn't mean it's not still great. It shows a more fun side to them. It's great because all three songs are so different in style, but also very similar. Like my favorite thing about the two non-title tracks, I guess, I don't know if that's what, I don't know, they both had music videos, but they're not technically the title track. But my favorite thing about those songs is that we get to hear more of the other members. And I mean, I understand why Younghoon sang all of Reminisce About All because he's the strongest vocalist. Dongmyoung helped him out a little bit in that song, but it's like, with a song like that, you need strong vocals, and that's exactly what they did. But in the other songs, we get to hear more of Kia and Dongmyoung in particular. I really enjoy those two members a lot. Like, Dongmyoung is my bias, no doubt. Like, I love him to death. He's my everything. But I've really grown to like Kia because I think he's really great. I think he's really interesting as well. He reminds me of someone, I'm not going to say who, just because it's like a really weird comparison. And I don't know if anyone else would see it, but it's like, it was like one of the first things I noticed when seeing him, I guess. I don't know. This album made me like 10 times more interested in ONE. I'm really excited for them to put out more in the future, and I'm really hoping they get Korean physical releases because in the future I'm not going to be buying their Japanese releases. I only bought this one because I wanted to have something to commemorate their debut, and they just didn't have a Korean release, which is really upsetting because I just want to collect ONE and I want to be able to buy their albums, and I'm hoping for good things so I can collect ONE albums because I love their music so much. I'd love to be able to support it. So the next album I want to talk about is NU'EST's Happily Ever After. This album was the absolute perfect way for NU'EST to come back with Minhyun because every single one of these songs, it's so much of NU'EST's style. Like, NU'EST W is a very different entity than NU'EST. Like, their music is just so much more different, and I'm really happy they kind of made that distinction between the two because with Minhyun and this style of music that they're doing, they're just so strong, and it's been that way since, you know, they started with Q-Is and then Canvas. Like, those two albums are pure perfection, and the fact that they kind of took that style and went with it for this album, I'm eternally grateful, because just these songs are so absolutely great. Bet Bet is a great title track. It's so powerful, and it's just really wonderful. Like, I don't really know what to say about it, but it's just so good. My favorite songs are Bass, Talk About Love, and Different. It's kind of hard to pick a favorite. I really like Signal and Fine as well. I don't know, it's hard to choose a favorite because I've just been listening to this whole album. There hasn't been one that stuck out to me more than another. It's just overall this whole album, so good. And it's just hearing Minhyun's voice in a New East album again is really, I don't know, it's just, New East is 5 just feels right. And the music that they're releasing just feels right. And it's like every great thing you could ever ask for in one album. So the next album I'm going to talk about is JBJ95's Awake. This album is probably one of the best pop music albums from this year. And that's like no joke. Every single song in this album is really good. Friend Zone, probably one of the boppiest songs ever. Awake is such a great title track. It's very powerful, very just everything that JBJ95 is. I'm so happy that they released Awake just because it kind of made me change my mind about JBJ95. At first, I of course really liked JBJ95. I love the members, like there's no doubting that, but like musically, they weren't everything I wanted them to be, but they released their second mini album, and now it's like, musically, they're everything I want them to be. Who I Am is probably also one of my favorite songs of the year. I don't know what it is about that song, but it's like, it's just so good. That song in particular made me realize just how well Sanghyun and Kenta's voices go together, and how well they just work together, and it's amazing. And then the last 3 songs on the album, Milky Way, Leave It to Me, and Looking for Love, they're all just so good. After the first half of the album, the pacing just kind of, it goes down a bit, and it's just kind of, it's a really good way to kind of balance out those other 3 songs that are really upbeat and exciting. And these 3 songs, again, they're just like everything I could ever ask for. I've been listening to this album almost nonstop since it came out, and I know they're supposed to have a comeback soon, and I'm just so excited for it. I'm hoping the album is just as good as this one. So this next one I'm going to talk about is actually kind of cheating a little bit, but it's okay. It's technically not. It is In Fact's Only You. So this would be cheating only because it has The Light and Na 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 on it, and that is half the album. The other 2 songs are new songs, but whatever. I love these songs so incredibly much. Only You is one of my favorite songs of the year. Probably my favorite song. The sound that In Fact is going for is just absolutely everything I could ask for. Like, it suits them so well, and the things that they are doing with their music, it just suits them so well. It is so much who they are as musicians, and it's just, they keep putting out music, and it's just, it gets better and better and better, and somehow I just love these songs more and more and more. So I don't know, and this release was just kind of the turning point in my relationship with In Fact, because it made me look into them a bit more. It gave me a bias in the group, because I had been standing In Fact since their debut, and I'd never had a bias. I'd always like kind of think, oh, maybe this boy's my bias, maybe this boy's my bias, but it's like this release in particular kind of cemented the fact that Eunjae is one of the loves of my life. And that's amazing, because when I was always like kind of thinking, oh, maybe this boy's my bias, it was never ever Eunjae. I was like, like, this boy definitely isn't my bias. Like, first 2 years of being into In Fact, I was like, I didn't pay much attention to Eunjae. Again, this release just kind of turned that around entirely. And then the second song that isn't Only You or an old title track, She Is, that song is so good. It's like a lullaby, and it's the most beautiful thing in the whole entire world. I absolutely love Eunjae's part at the beginning because he has such a deep voice, and even thinking about it, I'm like kind of swooning about it, but it's like just really beautiful, and I kind of wish he got the chance to sing like that more, because I know he's a rapper, and I know That's always going to be what he does in songs like that, because there'd be no real reason for him to sing when they have three, like, basically main vocalists, and that's fine. But as long as they release songs like this, I hope he gets the chance to sing more, because I just love his voice so incredibly much. I really love this release a lot. I'm so happy we got a physical for it too, because if there's one thing I want to do, it is to collect Impact, and I'm happy to do it in whatever way I can. So then the next album I'm going to talk about is Taehyun's Birthday. This album is short but very sweet. This album is absolutely everything I could have asked for from Taehyun. Taehyun has such an interesting voice. He has a really interesting vocal tone. He's just a really interesting vocalist, and like, he can do so many different interesting things with his voice. I don't know, it's like you listen to these songs and it's like kind of amazing, because you don't realize how much of just like a musical genius Taehyun is. Like, we know he's a great dancer and whatever, but it's like his voice is so amazing. And Birthday, the song itself, is like mid-tempo, and it's just absolutely everything. And then I Wanna Know is probably the best title track he could have promoted with, because it's so fun, and it shows off a really bright and cute side of him. It was definitely really fun following his promotions for that song, because I just really love to watch the dance for it, because the song itself is just really fun, and the performance is really fun, and it's just everything my heart needed, I guess. And then Love Lock, it's a very different style from the other two songs, but it's like so good. Like, I don't even know what to say about these songs other than they're so good. Like, even the last song on the album, Star in the Sky, it's a ballad, but it's like such a good ballad. Ballads are the thing that will always get me on an album, and is the thing that will always turn me off of it. Again, Taehyun's voice, so good. The lyrics for the song, they're so meaningful, and it's like, I will cry every time I listen to that song, because I think about certain things, especially with Taehyun himself, and it's just like, I get so emotional. I'm getting really passionate about this now, but every aspect of this album is so amazing, and every single aspect of Taehyun's artistry, just everything he does is so amazing, and I'm so happy that I got to witness this album release. I'm so happy I get to listen to it every day. If this album wasn't released this year, I don't know what I'd be doing, because I don't know. It's just like literally everything. But if you haven't listened to this album yet, I really recommend that you do. It is like my favorite thing ever. Okay, so the last album that I'm going to talk about that I physically own is CLC's No. So basically, overall, there's not a single thing I don't like about this album. I've listened to this album all the way through so many times this year, and it even kind of cemented its place as my favorite CLC album. I have to admit, No isn't my favorite title track, but it's like, I still love that song, and it's still something I hold very dear to my heart, because it did get them their first win, and it kind of took them back to a place where they needed to be. My favorite B-side from this album, and probably one of my favorite songs of the year, is Show. That song just kind of has the perfect style for them. Like, it suits their vocals, it suits their style really well. I love that song a lot, mostly because of Seunghee's high note. I don't know what it is about hearing Seunghee like just pop off, but it's like everything. I love it so much. Anyways, the rest of this album is really good as well. Breakdown is a great song. Like It is also a great song. And I Need You is also really good. It took me a really long time to realize that that song is entirely in English. I don't know why it took me so long, but it's like, also CLC is kind of the last group you'd expect to release a song in full English, and it's like they didn't even mention that it was all in English. I don't know, but it's cool regardless. Overall, this album, again, would probably be in my top 3. I don't know, it's hard to say. This is also an album I would really recommend you listen to if you haven't listened to it yet, because every song is different. Every song has its own different style, but it's also, every song is very cohesive, and they all fit really well together. So, okay, so now that I've gone through all of the ones that I physically own, I'm just going to quickly talk about some of the few that I don't own. So the first one I want to talk about is Very Good's Fantastic, and this album is just like kind of the perfect girl group album. Like, it's got a few different interesting styles, but it's also still kind of like that classic girl group sound. All the songs genuinely really are good. so that's a plus. Their title track, Oh Oh, is also really great. They didn't get much time to promote it, which is a shame. And also the music video for that song is horrendous. It is absolutely the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But the song itself is really great. There's also a song called Daddy Longlegs that I really, really like. And also a song called Dance in the Moonlight, which is a great song as well. So I would recommend you check out that album if you haven't yet. It's really, really good. Another album is WJSN's WJ Stay, but that album in particular is really good. I listened to it a lot, specifically around the time that it came out. This is also one of the first WJSN albums I've liked in full in a while. My last absolute favorite album from WJSN is from WJSN, that album. This album in particular, there's not necessarily anything that makes it different from their past albums because it's practically the same exact style, but I think this time the quality of the songs is just a lot better, and it's just kind of more of the style that I like. So, and then the next album I have bought, but I just don't have it with me yet, so that's why I'm not showing it, and it's Kim Jae-hwan's Another. I'm gonna be real with you guys and say I completely expected to not like this album, just because I knew he'd do something with ballads, and that is just wholeheartedly not my thing, and I will admit that. Jae-hwan really surprised me with this release. Begin Again, I first started off being kind of underwhelmed by it, but I really, really grew to like it. He has a really great voice. I don't know. It's kind of like that over everything else. I listened to the entire album. I was like, yeah, okay, this is good. And then I kept listening to the entire album, and I was like, yeah, this is really great. I think Love You Still is my favorite song on this album. That song is really beautiful. My Star is really great as well. Blow Me and Designer and Lala, Melodrama, whatever. They're all great. I like that he did some songs that are more upbeat. I'm glad he went with a different style for kind of the second half of the album because it showed off a different side to him, which I think we all can appreciate. And then the last album I will talk about is TXT's The Dream Chapter Star. The fact that I like this album is really unexpected for me, just because I was really uninterested in TXT when they were first getting announced. And that's like no shade. Like, just in general, if there's a new boy group that's getting announced and there's already a lot of hype about them, usually I'm not that interested, and it's not because other people are. It's not because I'm trying to be cool and like say, oh, I don't like this group that everyone else does. It is wholeheartedly because I just straight up can't get into boy groups the same way as I do girl groups, and I just find some boy groups to be so uninteresting, especially before they even put out music, and that was just kind of the case here. It's like, they're just boys and that's it. But with the release of this album, I like it a lot. I won't say I like TXT a lot. I will say that I like this album a lot, though. They really do have to make a comeback for me to decide if I like the group or not, because I can't really judge them based off this one album alone. I don't doubt that they'll continue to make new music that is really great and that I like, but I also, I don't know, don't want to get too like hype about it either. Anyways, I like every single song on this album except Nap of a Star. I don't know, it's just the song I always skip. I really like the album though because every single song has its own style. Blue Orange Jade is really interesting. So is Cat and Dog. Cat and Dog is like weird, but it's still good. Crown is really good, of course. I still listen to that song a bit. And Our Summer is probably my favorite song on this album just because it's just straight up a really nice song. It's kind of nostalgic in the way it sounds, and I think that's probably what got me because, I don't know, I'm just a sucker for those songs that like make me feel nostalgic for like no reason at all. Anyways, that was everything. I had about, 12 albums to talk about. If you haven't checked out any of the albums I've talked about, I really recommend you go listen to them. I think it's been a really good year for music thus far, and I'm really excited for everything that will be released in the second half of the year. I think it's really crazy that we're already in the second half of the year. 2019 is going by really fast, and I'm not ready for it, like, to be over. Anyways, yeah, that was everything. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.